question is the House to now adjourn. I give the call to the honourable member for Canning.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And tonight I want to talk about defence recruiting. It's in a really bad state. In fact, the reports I hear is that it is in a diabolical state. But tonight I want to start with my own experience, which was 22 years ago, and I thought it was an isolated incident. 22 years ago I applied for the ADF. My paperwork was lost. I had issues with recruiting, and I had some family friends who were serving in the ADF. One was a brigadier, another major general, and they both had to intervene to get my paperwork going. Once I was in the ADF, there were more issues to do with my basic training. And I remember the moment where I was so fed up that I said to the officer in charge, I said, I'm going to go to Mr Anthony Albanese, who was my Member of Parliament at the time. And I tell you what, I've never seen paperwork move so quickly in that instance. Now, looking back 22 years ago, I thought we would have fixed all these problems. But I've got to tell you, Mr Speaker, the reports that I've received, the reports that my colleagues have received, show our ADF recruiting to be in a terrible state. And we're losing good people. We're losing young Australians who are keen to serve their country but can't get through the door because of a whole range of administrative bungles. The system is not working and it needs fixing. But of course, defence, again, is proving itself to be part of the problem. Back in June, during estimates, questions were put about the personnel requirement for the ADF, and the number was at 63,597. There was a shortfall reported of 5,313. Now, just this month, the Defence Workforce Plan was released, and 2.5 years after the Albanese government won the election, it's taken 2.5 years to get a Defence Workforce Plan, and the government has revised down the personnel targets in the ADF to 58,650. Which now has reduced the shortfall by 1,624. They've lowered the standards of recruiting to reduce that shortfall, and it's unacceptable. This is while the country has grown in the last 2.5 years by 1.4 million people. So our ADF is shrinking as our general population is growing. But tonight I wanted to give voice to the young Australians who've had all sorts of troubles with ADF recruiting. I think of Alan from the Wheat Belt in Western Australia, who says, I've seen the posts about ADF recruiting and have had a dismal experience with both of my children trying to enlist for up to 2 years now. The experience has been abysmal." End quote. Alan's son was due to attend his enlistment last Tuesday morning at 7:30 a.m. However, he was advised at 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon before that he was no longer able to attend because Defence Force recruiting couldn't get hold of the person who processed his security clearance. Faith from Perth, who was homeschooled, who met all the requirements. She completed her OLNA test, her SAT test, her years 11 and 12 at TAFE, attempted to get a position with the ADF Gap Year program, and she was denied. And she says, "My ADF case manager has been struggling to convince her supervisor that I qualify for the Gap Year despite my competence." Aidan from Victoria says, "My career goal is to become a defence helicopter pilot, and I had recently completed testing with ADF Recruitment, which I had successfully unlocked the naval helicopter pilot. However, I disclosed in my medical application that I had used an asthma inhaler once 4 years ago. Unfortunately, this disclosure meant my application was rejected." This is despite him appealing the decision, demonstrating that he no longer suffered from asthma, and this is a kid who has strong academic results, having achieved DUCS of Systems Engineering for 2023 with a predicted ATAR of 90. I could go on. Tiana from Queensland has had similar issues. She says she's starting to consider other employment options and just wants to know whether she has been accepted or not. And then Joshua from New South Wales, who's has been attempting to apply to the ADF since April 2022. He scored a high result in the aptitude test and unlocked almost every job within defence. He was rejected by medical teams without review by a doctor for having a history of anxiety disorder during adolescence, which is more and more common with young Australians these days. And the point in all of this is that we are letting young Australians who are keen to wear our uniform, to put a flag on their shoulder and defend our country. And because of the quality of ADF recruiting, which has been outsourced first to Manpower and now to Adecco, we are letting young Australians go on by and they're finding careers elsewhere. We can't afford to do this, especially when we already have a recruiting and a retention crisis in the ADF, and we will fix it if we win government next year.